Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining me for another mock class. This side, we head over to the defensive ball. I did offensive yesterday. I'm heading over to defense today. Defensive line, linebackers, corners, and safeties will be talked about. I think I put the corners and the safeties together in a DB position. Sorry about my voice. It's a little bit hoarse, but I'm going to keep going with the video. Teva Tafidi is a guy that a lot of people do not expect to end up in this class, but I think somehow or another he will. He's hoping to make a decision in early June. I think he could very well push that back or push that up. But he has said many times he would like to take some of his visits, and he can't take visits without doing self-guided ones until early to mid-June. DJ Wesolak is another guy that I expect to end up in this class, but I don't think he needs an official visit to do so. I could see him and Tyson Ford heading over to South Bend in the next 10 to 20 days. And once they do that, I think DJ Wesolak pretty much commits on the spot and ends up in this class. Caleb Artis is a guy who can go either way. I was really contemplating putting Lucas, but that was a little bit overreach. I was also contemplating putting Donovan Heinisch in there, but I went with Artis for the lone fact. I think he's the most reasonable. Heinisch, people are going to get frustrated. The staff, I know, doesn't care about that, but I do think Artis is a better player than Heinisch. Some people think they're about the same, but I think Artis is the most likely to end up. He's the medium of the group, but 100% Lucas or Heinisch can end up in this class, replacing him. They also could take two defensive tackles. They would only take 2 or 3 defensive ends then. I just don't see them taking more than 5 defensive linemen. And then Aiden Gobiara finishes it off there in the bottom left. He's played incredibly well so far in his junior year, by the way. Niuafe Tulimaka is a guy who was offered in late January, decommitted from USC a few days after. I'm really confident he ends up in this class. Some are saying he's a silent. I'm not going to say he is or he isn't. I really don't know. But I'd put any pick I could in there. If I had a crystal ball or a future cast option. Sebastian Cheeks is a guy who is still likely to end up in this class. But if you were to ask me 3 months ago, I'd tell you he was a lock. I still think he will end up in this class. Clarkley definitely hurt that a little bit. The options they have, but I do think they'll end up taking 5 linebackers. It's crazy that they're going to leave off a guy. Most likely, if Sneed, Tulimaka, and Cheeks come along to pair with Ziegler and Burnham, like Davon Jackson. Davon Jackson, I think, would end up at Notre Dame. I'm pretty confident in saying that, but I don't think he will. Langston Patterson was the guy who committed last week that I very well could have seen him suit up in the blue and gold and come in this 2022 class. So crazy year for linebacker recruiting. It is what it is, though. You got to take the best guys available. Jaylen Sneed took a self-guided tour to Tennessee this past weekend and then made his way up to Indianapolis and then over to South Bend. Confident in my Notre Dame pick. I will say also there has since been a future cast added since I made the spreadsheet, so don't worry about that. But yeah, super confident he ends up in the blue and gold. I think he needs his parents to see it, his family to see it. The campus, as a lot of these kids do. Sebastian Cheeks the first time went by himself, and then he took his parents. He was close to committing, but he really wanted to wait until after his junior year so all these other schools could offer because so far he has played 5 high school varsity games, maybe even 3 leading up to this year. So he wants to get those Bama offers, the Bama offer, the Clemson offer, those SEC powerhouse, the South schools, which I get. Some kids just like to add that to their repertoire, but I'm still not worried about those schools snagging him. He'll stay in the Midwest. But Jaylen Sneed needs to get his family up to South Bend. Once he does that, I think he commits on the spot. And I know Ziegler and Joshua Burnham, 2 guys that ended up in this class, 2 guys that Michigan was after, Michigan offered. I just want to say that. Some say Michigan led for a period of time. Just got to get that little Michigan shot out there. And then we're heading to the DBs. We have – okay. people won't agree with me that Jair Brown and Kamari Rogers are on this list. If I'm being 100% realistic, I'd probably put Nikkei Martinez, maybe Terrence Brooks. I do think he's a Texas A&M lean, though. But I'd probably put Nikkei Martinez, maybe ended at 3. I don't know, maybe Davison Igbinosun. But I put Kamari Rogers and Jair Brown on this to spice it up a little bit. I love their games. I think they're 2 big-time players. And I do think Notre Dame has a reasonable shot at landing them. Or realistic, I should say, shot at landing them. But I have Kamari Rogers and I have Jair Brown on this. I will say if Rogers does pick up an Ohio State offer, I'm not sure the contact he's had with Kerry Coombs, but if he does get an Ohio State offer, I think he would possibly end up at Ohio State. But he does not have that offer yet. They're not really recruiting him. This is right now Ole Miss, Miami, and Notre Dame. Mississippi State will also get a visit, but I'm confident in saying it'll come down to Miami, Ole Miss, Notre Dame. And we'll see what happens. Jair Brown is definitely just Ohio State, Notre Dame at this point. I think if he was an uncommitted prospect, he might have already committed to Notre Dame by now. But right now, I would call him an uncommitted prospect, but not a guy who would lean either way. He really, I don't know. I really don't value his pledge to Ohio State that highly when it comes to recruiting. Jaylen Mickey, love his game, has played brilliantly on special teams and on the defense side of the ball. I believe he had a punt return or something nuts in his game this past week for Centennial High School in California. Great pickup. I think him coming in this early, getting the green light, solidified that Notre Dame would take 3 corners. So, yeah, great pickup for Marcus Freeman and company. And then we head over to Sherrod Koval and KJ Winston. Those are the 2 most likely guys. Nwankpa will be taking an official visit in mid-June if you missed that. I do think he ends up at Ohio State, though. I was debating putting Cooper Barakate here, but I think his contact in Notre Dame has been slowing down a lot. There's a lot of buzz about him. I had a lot of buzz about him. I love his game, but I don't think he ends up in this class. I don't think Winston has the green light, though. I don't think it is a committable offer. But let's wait until this summer, this fall to see, because then it could be. And then I think, will end up at Notre Dame. He needs to take a visit, too. He is yet to be on campus. And then Sherrod Koval. Michigan's in this one, but I think the main schools are Penn State and Virginia Tech. Maybe even Virginia, too. But he's definitely going to end up I'm confident in saying he'd end up at a VTech or Virginia and then Penn State or Notre Dame. And if I'm in his position, he's a high academic kid. He's a very talented football player. I could see him rising to even a 5'9", or someone inside the top 250. He's been balling out at a bunch of these 7-on-7 camps around the country, which if you do not watch those, you've got to watch them. They're super, super entertaining. Jair Brown and Kamari Rogers are 2 other guys that play in those pretty much every other weekend or every weekend. I'm trying to think who else for you guys plays in them. Nuafa Tulimaka has played in a few. Let's see who else. Amarian Walker's played in a few. Tobias Merriweather's played in a couple. Dallin Hayden had a big outing at one, I believe, 2 weekends ago. And then Angeli has played a little bit too. So yeah, I'll go to the defense side of the ball. That was offense. I did that yesterday. But defensively, I have them taking 5 guys. Tafidi and Artis are definitely 2 question marks, but I'm really confident Wesselak commits in the coming month. And then Tyson Ford and Gobi are a stay. I'm really confident in this 5. It's shocking to me that a guy like Davon Jackson is going to be left off, but it is what it is. It's a crazy year. And then the DBs is really where it gets interesting, and I really don't have a specific group, I guess. I'm confident Jaylen Mickey signs. I am confident KJ Winston ends up in this class, but Kamari Rogers, Jair Brown, and Sherrod Koval, I really have no clue. Jaden Manhagem is another guy that could end up there. So it's crazy. This is the best mock I guess I can make. Drop a comment down below if you have anyone else that you would put in here. There are just a bunch of guys vying for only a couple spots. Numbers can change too. They definitely could only take 4 DBs. I've seen even 3 DBs thrown around, but I think I think they'd take more than 3. That would be probably 1 safety and 2 corners. I'm confident they'd take 3 corners and 1 or 2 safeties. All right, that's the video. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. I will respond to pretty much every single comment if you make a comment.